they wanted these things segregated into their own little special category to kind of create this backdoor gun registry. So
Right.
put some very harsh penalties on folks using that merchant category code in Texas.
Ooh, the bank lobbies got really mad
And
at
the bank
Richard.
lobbies got really mad. We are the Armed Attorneys. We're talking about a big bank backing down on restrictions on these gun sellers, discriminating against 18, 19, 20-year-olds, some devices they did not like. But before we begin, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting that like button. And this report, originally, I think saw it out of the Wall Street Journal, but this all originated in 2018 with Citigroup saying, guess what? We are going to take an anti-gun stance. We are not going to do business with federal firearms licensed dealers that transfer guns to 18, 19, and 20-year-olds. They also focused in on bump stocks and some other devices. And, we're seeing a big reversal. We're going to be talking about that reversal a little bit, what may have prompted this, what their policy is now, and what we can expect going forward. But starting with that 2018 policy, that was bad.
That was bad. That was
Bad.
bad. And I mean, yes, with the full understanding that businesses are allowed to do what they want. Businesses are not the government, right? Um, you know, Budweiser is allowed to blow their brand credibility in whatever advertising way that they want. Other big businesses are allowed to endorse or not other things that are politically important to them. That's all well and
Share a Pepsi with a
good.
rider. Is that what you're saying?
All well and good. But when it comes to some of these entities, I mean, they are quasi common carriers, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they're not, but they're damn close.
it's almost more like, yeah, I would equate these banks more to almost like a power provider or a water provider. Yeah, it's almost like a utility
Yes,
other than like, hey, look, this is my mom and pop hamburger stand.
exactly. You can always go get a different hamburger. You can't always find, and especially the way these banks go, a lot of them tend to make the same choices at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always find a new bank. Insurance companies, same thing, right? We have like a rash of insurance companies who don't want to insure gun ranges. Well, that's a really good way to put gun ranges out of business. And then all of a sudden you are suppressing an entire political class of persons. And it's no longer just a business making a choice, right? So, Richard Hayes, author of a bank restricting piece of legislation that helped gun rights in Texas in the year 2023. Tell us what's going on.
So, I think, this whole cultural Marxism stuff may be on its heels, this debanking stuff.
I think so.
I think I want to declare it dead, and I would like us all to move on as a society. Because yes, getting
Well,
deep.
it's still like it's on the
Oh
ground.
no,
It's like
it's yeah, it's in the bathtub and it's struggling.
I want to
Well,
live, but I think it's close. It's close.
but I think for a little bit of background, let's start with some history. So back in 2018, Citi published a policy. I'm just going to read part of this. It said, under this new policy, we will require retail sector clients or partners to adhere to the best practices that they don't sell firearms to someone who hasn't passed a background check. They restrict the sale of firearms for individuals under 21 years of age, and they don't sell bump stocks and high-capacity magazines. This policy will apply across the firm, including to small businesses, commercial and institutional clients, as well as credit card partners. Whether they co-brand or private label, it doesn't impact the ability of consumers to use their Citi cards, merchants, or at merchants of their choice. So what they're talking is, all right, a lot of these people, maybe they don't even bank with Citi. Maybe they use Citi for credit card processing. I mean, they're touching all these people. So I'll say the 18, 19, 20-year-olds purchasing firearms, that's one thing. High capacity magazines. What does that even, I mean, God,
Right.
right. What does that even mean?
Well, like if you don't do background checks, does that mean if I as a Texan go into a gun store and I use my LTC as a bypass for my background check and they don't conduct a background check, does that mean that Citigroup is not going to let that gun store use its banking services?
I'm sure they're intimately familiar with the NICS substitute system. So
Yeah, also the federal government enforces that already, and
right.
boy have they been enforcing it. So like calm down, Citi.
So what changed? We had an executive order in January, and it really related to cryptocurrencies, but there was a little nugget of truth in there that I think kind of signaled that we were going to see something like that. What was that?
Okay. Oh, I love truth nuggets. So this is out of the Trump executive order. And, it lists that in part, the motivation is for protecting and promoting fair and open access to banking services for all law abiding individuals, citizens, and private sector entities alike. We don't get to put you out of business through the banking services.
Yeah, we don't and a lot of this stuff, and I think we're going to see more of this uncovered as time goes on because we saw it with all the social media platforms. They'd get pressure from feds. Hey, you might want to go check out this comment. Well, that was code for, hey, censor this person, shut down they're reaching too many people. We don't want this message out there. The banking industry, I imagine, was subject to very similar pressures with regard to firearms.
I would think so. And in fact, it was, going back to that piece of legislation you wrote and got passed in Texas, there was that international banking group, and you did it, so I'm going to butcher all of this and you can correct me, but there was that international standards organization that was trying to code all firearms purchases. And that was a big deal. And that came kind of right around this same time as well.
Yeah, they were trying to, as the ISO, they created a new merchant category code for firearms, accessories, things like that. Previously firearms and all this other stuff, ammo, was all categories. It's just sporting goods, general category. They wanted these things segregated into their own little special category to kind of create this backdoor gun registry.
Right.
So we put some very harsh penalties on folks using that merchant category code in Texas.
The bank lobbyists got really mad.
And the bank
Richard.
lobbyists got really mad.
But that was my memory is that was done by the ISO. Thank you for that. I never would have remembered that acronym. In response to government pressure, right? In response to letters from like U.S. congressmen and things like that.
Yeah, saying we want this number. Okay. Well, and it's all about all right. Sidebar just a little bit.
Ridiculous.
It's all about the third-party search doctrine. Guess what? You have expectation of privacy in your records. Well, maybe records you keep with a third party. You have a lowered expectation of privacy, and the government uses that as a backdoor to get all these records that they wouldn't otherwise get, especially without a search warrant. And so,
do not let the government in your back door.
No, but if you were going to have a prohibition on that, if you were going to have all these kind of records kept here, well, the government says we don't have a gun registry. The International Standards Organization or these bank payment processors, they have the record. You don't have any expectation of that. So we just said we're not going to mess with that.
Yes, exactly. So should we talk about the newness?
Yeah, so this came out. This is June 3rd, city policy. Quoting in part, we also will no longer have a specific policy as it relates to firearms. Our U.S. commercial firearms policy was implemented in 2018, and it pertains to the sale of firearms by our retail clients and partners. This policy was intended to promote the adoption of best practices as prudent risk management and didn't address the manufacturing of firearms. Many retailers have been following the best practices, and we hope that communities and lawmakers will continue to seek out ways to prevent tragic consequences of gun violence. Well, obviously, nobody wants to be a victim of, a crime, but that aside, Citigroup has reversed this.
They have, although the way they talk about it is really kind of gross. It's like, well, it's not really a reversal. It's not like, hey, we really shouldn't have done this, but it's like, we did it and it worked, and so we don't have to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. Policy change is a policy change. I'm happy for that, but also like, I just love it when the other side has to eat crow.
Yeah.
And,
but at the
can't make them.
At the end of the day, this is really important for gun owners. This is part of the anti-gun strategy. Guess what? You remove firearms education. I'll say, have you seen, there's some pretty interesting stuff out there about children's exposure to like firearm safety at an early age compared to folks who aren't. But I'll say, the access to financial services by gun owners for exercising a God-given right that the government is theoretically supposed to be restrained from infringing on, this kind of creates a chilling effect when they say, the government comes and says, hey, y'all need to start keeping track of these guys, or hey, you need to not do business with these people. Well, when you're operating with a fundamental, constitutionally protected right, guess what? We don't want any of that.
Yeah.
But high priority for gun owners. I'll say this is a win. We'll see how long it lasts, but we hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And as always, question and comment for us below. Until next time, we're the Armed Attorneys.